question of consciousness is way too big for one video. I could do an entire YouTube channel on it. I won't. I've got enough to do right now. But the biggest debate about consciousness is whether or not it's internal or external. Is it all inside our own skull? Just the random firings of hundreds of billions of neurons in an emergent phenomena that we can't quite see? Or is it something else? Something woven into the fabric of the universe and an emergent phenomena that, well, we can't see. Brain researchers and computer scientists are finding plenty of reason to believe it's the former. But there's a group called the Global Consciousness Project that's starting to find some evidence that it might be the latter. Now, I know for some of you, this episode is going to be a bridge too far, so for you, I'm going to hit the patented woo-woo alarm. With gene editing, we can go into the DNA itself and pull out the bad genes and just insert good genes. If we could do that, all it would take is collecting a few stem cells, making those changes in the stem cells, letting them multiply, and then reinserting them into the body to prevent you from ever getting things like Alzheimer's or dementia, even cancer. We could even create therapies for current diseases by putting that DNA into viruses and then letting the virus just naturally spread it throughout the body. What we need is a scalpel that can go in and make tiny little edits right there in the DNA without messing up the rest of the DNA. And at the end of last year, they announced that they may have found that scalpel, and it's called CRISPR-Cas9. It allows the bacteria to collect tiny markers of the virus that tried to attack it and insert those markers into its DNA so that in the future it can fight off that virus better. But the cool thing about Cas9 is that it's programmable. So if we could program it to, say, go in and take out the genes for ALS or multiple sclerosis or cancer, we could cure just about any disease. Cystic fibrosis, gone. Arthritis in the family, gone. Really pale, sensitive skin, gone. The treatment options this presents are absolutely incredible, and in time we may actually even be able to reverse aging itself. Human lifespans may be about to take a huge leap. Boötes Void is a giant empty area of space about 700 million light years from Earth, located in the constellation Boötes. Hence the name. It was discovered in 1981 by astronomer Robert Kirshner and has been baffling scientists ever since. It measures 250 million light years in diameter. It's literally 0.25% of the entire universe. And it's almost completely bloody empty. One theory challenges the validity of the Big Bang Theory. As I mentioned in a previous episode, the Big Bang Theory states that in the earliest moments of the universe, energy and matter were spread uniformly, very smoothly across the cosmos. Boötes Void flies in the face of this cosmic uniformity and has led many people to believe that it disproves the Big Bang Theory itself. Another thought is that maybe it's a dark energy bubble. As many of you know, dark energy is the force that accelerates the expansion of the universe. Could it be that something in this void is radiating dark energy out at a higher rate than the rest of the universe? A much more fun interpretation of Boötes Void is, of course, apparently there are millions of people around the world who remember, like it was yesterday, that Mandela actually died in prison. So when he did actually die in 2013, there were a lot of very confused people because they could have sworn they remembered that he died years ago. Now, I personally didn't experience this because I remember when he was released from prison and like a couple years later he was president, and I remember thinking how just insane that would be to be a prisoner for 27 years and then suddenly you're the president of a country. But I do think I understand how those people feel because I experienced the Berenstain Bears effect. Yes, I am one of millions of people who distinctly remember growing up reading the books called the Berenstain Bears. And then when later it was pointed out to me that it was actually the Berenstain Bears, I thought I was taking crazy pills. Some people think it might be proof of parallel universes. How else could so many people have the same vivid memory of something that never happened? We place a lot of trust in human memory because it feels very real to us and it kind of makes up who we are in a way. But the human memory is not accurate at all. It's, in fact, breathtakingly unreliable. For example, if you're remembering an old room of yours, your brain will reassemble all the different parts of that room, but maybe it misplaces the lamp. But instead of just leaving a blank space there where the lamp used to be, your brain fills in that spot. Because while it may not remember the lamp, it definitely remembers a lamp. So maybe it replaces that lamp with another memory, maybe from a TV show you watched as a child. Your brain is a reinforcement machine, and once it gets the idea in place that something is a certain way, it can construct all kinds of imaginative scenarios that back that up, even if they didn't happen. Maybe there was a rumor going around that Mandela had died, or some tabloid rag had some headline that you saw for a split second, and then your brain just filled in all the rest of it. In my case, I may have heard somebody say Berenstein, and it just stuck with me for the rest of my life. Besides, there's a lot of names that end in Steen or Stein. There's not a whole lot of names that end in Stain, so I probably never even thought Stain. I just thought these other things because I've heard them some of the other places like that. You know that famous scientist, Albert Einstein? If the simplest answer is best, then the simple answer is just that our memories kind of suck. And our brains are really good at making stuff up. There are a few fundamental issues with the Big Bang Theory that have yet to be resolved. Here's 5 of them. Issue number 1. What the hell? This is the obvious question. So there was nothing and then there was everything. So where did it all come from? Why did it expand in the first place? Science still has no idea. Issue number 2. Missing magnetic monopoles. In the first epoch of the Big Bang, known as the Grand Unification Epoch, all the forces of the universe were combined into one unified force at like trillions of degrees. When our supercomputers simulate these conditions, they predict the creation of a particle called magnetic monopoles. They're massive particles that really should be found all throughout the universe, but we've never found one. Issue number 3, the flatness problem. Space-time in our current universe is extremely flat. It just has a very slight curve to it. But in a universe that expanded from a single point, this is theoretically impossible. The universe would have to be either completely flat or massively curved, because any deviation in curvature in the initial conditions as the universe expanded would cause it to expand in its curvature as well. But it apparently didn't. Issue number 4, the horizon problem. The temperature of the CMB, the leftover radiation from the Big Bang, is almost perfectly the same no matter what direction you're looking at it. So the CMB temperature here is the same as here, even though they're nearly 30 billion light years away. For something to be that uniform and smooth would require it to be able to communicate with each other. And problem number 5, the clumpiness issue. As I just said, the CMB is extremely smooth and even, but the rest of the universe is fairly clumpy. But there is another theory that's gained a little bit of steam over the last couple of decades that aims to solve some of these problems. It's called ekpyrotic theory. Proponents of the ekpyrotic theory have a mathematical model of what the gravitational wave would look like if it was caused by two brains colliding. So when we find this massive wave from the beginning of the universe, we'll be able to test and see which one of these theories wins out. It's pretty exciting. Another comment that I got a lot was I got a lot of people telling me that I need to go and watch Thunderfoot's video on this because he totally debunked it and totally disproved it, and I'm going to feel like an idiot once I watch it. Those people clearly didn't look into the description of my video because I shared Thunderfoot's video in the description. I mean, where I stand on this, honestly, this is all it boils down to for me, is basically like, let's just let the research happen. Like, all this really means that it went through peer review is that they're going to be doing more tests on it. NASA is going to be doing more tests on this engine to try to figure out if it does actually work in better conditions. I think there's actually plans to put one up in space, to the space station, and see what happens there. But they're going to do more tests on it. Good. I think we should do more tests on it. We should find out whether it works or not, and if it works, how it works. I had a few different people point out that the power it would take to lift a 200-pound man with an M drive would be all the power in the world. I don't know where this came from, but several people have latched onto it, and I don't know why it's being directed at me because I never said anything remotely close to that. I'm sure everybody who commented that thinks that I feel really silly right now. I feel silly for lots of reasons, but not that one because I never said that. I don't know why it's being directed at me. Hey, it's 2016. I took a few weeks off to recharge my batteries, but we're back, and let's start things off with a really simple question, something that's really easy to answer. Is there a God? We're gonna talk about God. There's two types of questions that I get asked on here. One is the kind that has an absolute answer. You can just do a Google search and find all the facts yourself. The other type doesn't really have answers out there to be found, so the only thing that I can search is myself. The first one is much easier. Thanks, Jonathan. Because to me, it's not really about God. It's about, just reality. I mean, what is this thing? We live in this sensory space around our bodies, and it all makes sense to us. We think we've got a good beat on things. But when you look to the edges of our collective knowledge, you start to see that this whole thing just falls apart. We now think that 94% of our universe is made up of dark energy and dark matter, two things that we have absolutely no proof of outside of indirect observation and math equations. We're finding out that the fundamental particles that make up all matter can pop in and out of existence and be in multiple places at once and only exist in probability states. Probability states that can be affected by observation and actions in the future that haven't even taken place yet. We still aren't 100% sure how gravity works. So for anyone to consider all of that and say that they think they know the answer about God because of what they can see around them, to me, that's just so nearsighted. Could these infinitely connected subatomic particles communicating instantaneously across all of space and time create some kind of universal superconsciousness? Can non-conscious matter connect in such a way to create a consciousness? Well, the fact that you're watching this means that it can. Your brain is made up of 100 billion neurons, none of which by themselves can hold a memory or make a thought or do anything like that, but they connect in such a way that through chemical and electrical signals, they create a consciousness. Each cell in your body has tiny little proteins and subcellular mechanisms that are just going about their business, doing their thing. They have no idea that they are serving the larger purpose of keeping the cell alive. And the cell just does its thing and goes about its business, and it has no idea that it's serving the larger purpose of keeping us alive. And we just go about our business and we just do our things, and we have no idea. Does our existence serve a higher purpose that we have no way of seeing ourselves? Emergence says it could. Ray Kurzweil got his start as an inventor. He invented the first CCD flatbed scanner and was a pioneer in voice recognition technology. He famously created one of the most popular musical keyboards of the 80s, the Kurzweil keyboard, that was the first to accurately recreate the sound of a piano. He's written 7 books, received 20 honorary doctorates, and been given honors by 3 US presidents, and in 2012 was named the Director of Engineering at Google. Kurzweil believes that by 2019, autonomous cars are going to be pretty common on the roads of industrialized nations. Now you may be thinking 2019, that's just a few years down the road, is that possible? I would argue yeah, it's very possible. We've had self-parking cars for several years now, and Tesla famously created autopilot, which allows the car to basically drive itself at highway speeds. So according to Kurzweil, in the 2030s, we've basically got 2 separate realities. We've got the physical world that involves cars driving us around everywhere we want to go, and then a virtual world that's probably going to be 5% gaming, 5% cat videos, and 90% sex. Because let's be honest, when it comes to online innovation, porn always leads the way. There will be orgies. Lots and lots of orgies. By 2099, Kurzweil believes that machines will be given legal status as conscious entities and biological human beings will become fewer and fewer. The ever-increasing rate of mass replication would lead to literally planet-sized computers that would bring dead material, quote-unquote dead material, into consciousness, and as the process spreads, the universe itself would come to life. That's insane! Regardless of whether Kurzweil's predictions turn out to be true, we are in the middle of the single most transformative period in human history. And you just have to sit back and be grateful for that. So let's strap on our wingsuits and enjoy it. Most people credit the simulation hypothesis to Nick Bostrom, a philosopher and theoretical physicist from the University of Phoenix. Wait, did I say University of Phoenix? I meant Oxford. Oxford. Bostrom published a paper in 2003 in which he postulated that at least one of the following 3 statements must be true. 1. The human species is very likely to go extinct before reaching a post-human stage. 2. Any post-human civilization is extremely unlikely to run a significant number of simulations of their evolutionary history or variations thereof. Or 3. We are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. In other words, given the exponential growth in our computer power, unless we manage to go extinct, we will eventually be able to run ancestor simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. The only question then becomes, will we do it or won't we? If we are living in an ancestral simulation that's been created by a future civilization, then you are the ancestor of your own creator. You are God's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent. A creator who, his or herself, would have no idea whether or not they were in a simulation. And think about a couple of centuries down the line when we're able to create these types of simulations with conscious beings that have no idea that they're in a simulation. How deep does this thing go? It's simulations all the way down. So as I said in the beginning, this is really more of a thought experiment. Don't take any of this too seriously. Don't go out and run in front of a train because you know the simulation will save you. It will not. Because even if we were living in a simulation, what would change? You'd still have to eat, you'd still have to go to work, you still have to be a decent human being. It's not like all the rules of life just go flying out the window. From the beginning of time, we have always been a species that has not trusted that reality is what we perceive it to be, that there's something deeper going on. Where does that come from? Is that something unique in our special brains that causes us to think that way? Or was it programmed into us? The choice is yours. mDRIVE has officially made it through peer review, which is amazing because it literally breaks every law of physics. So most rockets work on the whole every action produces an equal and opposite reaction principle. But the mDRIVE works by firing microwaves into this conical structure called a frustum. And the microwaves bounce back and forth inside of this, intensifying in energy and thus creating a thrust. But wait, how? Because the microwaves don't travel outside of the engine. There's nothing firing one direction to push the ship the other direction. It's all enclosed in this capsule, so that shouldn't be happening. The thrust is only 1.2 micronewtons per watt, which is so small that literally a passing gust of air could have caused that thrust. So they tested it again in a vacuum chamber, and yeah. Now, we can't yet say that it works because it's only passed peer review, but by passing peer review, that takes it out of the list of fringe ideas. And that itself is really cool. Now, there are 4 theories that have been put forth to try to explain why this thing works. The first one is radiation pressure. This one says the difference in pressure the radiation exerts on the different areas of the cone brings forth something called the Lorentz force, which acts on charged particles to create thrust. Somehow. The next one is vacuum energy. Now this is something that would be called a QVT. A QVT stands for quantum vacuum thruster. This is a theoretical engine idea that works off of quantum vacuum fluctuations to create low-density plasma through a process called magnetohydrodynamics. You know, that old chestnut. The third is quantized inertia. A physics professor named Mike McCullough created an explanation that he calls quantization of inertia. Now, this relies on a theoretical type of energy predicted by general relativity called Unruh radiation, which an accelerating body would experience as blackbody radiation. And last but not least is photon leakage. And this one I might actually understand. Now, this relies on the wave-particle duality of photons in the chamber so that as they bump into each other and combine, they can destructively interfere with each other, which removes their electromagnetic field around them but allows the 2 photons to pass through the chamber wall, which means that there is actually photons escaping out the back of this thing, which would actually provide. This harnessing of the quantum world to improve things in our world is really amazing to me. There are things, energies and matters hidden underneath the surface of reality, and whether it's things like mDRIVE or quantum computers, we are just dipping our toes into this chasm of ignorance that's always separated the quantum world from our world. And that's friggin' awesome.